Do you ever feel like your food cravings are controlling you to the point where you keep making bad food choices, you have uncontrollable binges at times, and you just can't seem to achieve your health and fitness goals, even though you know what you're supposed to be eating? It's like you just can't get yourself to do it. And if so, then stick around, because I want to share a super crazy simple technique that I've been using that's helped me lose 36 pounds and control my food cravings without relying on willpower, motivation, or some secret diet hacks. Saturday nights used to be my worst enemy, because every Saturday night I would consume 5,500 calories and sometimes more than that. It was like I would do great all week. I'd get my workouts in, I had my nutrition dialed in, I was like ticking all of the boxes. And for some reason, every time the weekend came around, that Saturday night came up and I would just blow it. Like I would lose control. And of all things, at the time, I was a fitness coach and a trainer who knew better. I knew all about nutrition and exercise. I knew what I was supposed to eat and what I shouldn't be eating. And it still wasn't enough. And eventually I started to figure some things out and have gotten to a place now where over the last year and a half, I've lost 36 pounds. I've been able to control my food cravings and my binges, and this is how I'm doing it. So real quick, I was a fitness coach for over 20 years, and I kept this secret, this struggle that I was having, these uncontrollable food cravings and these episodes where I would just binge. And I didn't tell anybody about it, especially not my clients, because it's like I felt this pressure that I had to live up to this identity of kind of embodying what it means to be healthy and fit. Like that's who I was. And when I wasn't living up to that, I felt like I was a failure. Like I was just letting everybody down around me, and especially myself. I felt embarrassed, I felt ashamed, I felt humiliated at times, and like I was a failure. And the crazy thing is that I like blamed myself. I thought I didn't have enough willpower. I didn't want my goals badly enough. I needed more motivation. I thought all these things to myself. And eventually what I realized was that this wasn't happening because my willpower or my motivation was failing. It was happening because my brain and nervous system were actually driving it. No matter how much I tried, how much willpower I tried to summon, even though I had all the knowledge that I needed about knowing how to eat healthy and what I needed to do to achieve my fitness goals, it was not enough. It wasn't enough to override the signals that my brain was sending that were driving me to eat. So some of the common reasons that lead to overeating and binges and food cravings are things like stress. It could be related to work, relationships, financial stress. It can be pain, especially chronic pain. Things like lower back, knee pain, shoulder, neck. Especially if you notice that when you have times that you either have a lot going on, if you are feeling overwhelmed, or if you're feeling anxious about things, if those times you notice that your pain increases and or your hunger increases, your cravings increase, or you're more likely to go into binging. These are clues as to some of the things that could be behind the scenes triggering it. There's also things like lack of sleep. You know, when we don't get enough sleep, it affects our recovery, it affects our hormones, obviously disrupts the normal sleep-wake cycle, so it could also increase hunger, and especially cravings when it comes to all those foods that we love to eat, but that we know we're not supposed to eat. There's also things like poor food choices or poor nutrition. You know, when we're not getting the nutrition that we need, that's one of the things that can actually drive us to eat more. The brain senses that we're not getting enough nutrients that we need, and so it keeps sending signals to keep eating. So even though we could be eating enough calories, those might be calories that don't offer enough nutrition that we need. It could also be things related to previous trauma, physical, mental, emotional trauma that happened at any point during your life. It's like a lot of times, even though the event has already passed, the memory still lingers on, even if it's just at a subconscious level that we might not even be aware of. High emotional states can drive increased cravings and make it more likely that we end up binging. These are all things that can increase threat perception in the brain and nervous system. And I've gone over what threat perception is and the threat bucket concept in the previous videos on this channel. So if you're not familiar with that, be sure to watch those. But the more threat that our brain is perceiving, the more the survival brain becomes activated. And the more active our survival brain is, it's designed to get us to engage in survival behaviors, because it's basically the brain's response to perceived threats that's trying to get us to avoid danger and seek safety. One of those things that our brain will drive us to do when our survival brain is active is to eat, especially if you're getting food cravings that you really can't control or you're binging. So some of the key areas of the brain that become overactive during times where we're dealing with food cravings or binging that we want to be aware of are areas like the midbrain. So that's what I just referred to as the survival brain. Basically, this is the area that can become overactive when our brain is interpreting information coming in through our senses as threats to our survival. So, it could be real threats, but a lot of times they're not. They're more, we can call imagined threats, meaning that we're not really in threat. We're not really in danger. Our lives aren't in danger, but our brain is interpreting these signals as if we are. So a lot of times there's a misinterpretation that's going on. The more overactive the survival brain is, the more we can get hunger signals that drive us to want to eat. Another area is the hypothalamus. And basically this is one of the areas responsible for regulating hunger signals. And so this can be times where you feel this need to eat, like you're hungry, even though you know you're not. So it could be times where you've already eaten and you can kind of feel that you've got food in your stomach, or you might even feel full, but you have this compulsion almost to want to eat more. This is something that I have dealt with a lot over the years, being so full at times that I can barely breathe and still having this urge to keep eating. It's like this just insatiable appetite and this need for food that no amount of willpower is enough to overcome. Another area of the brain is the insular cortex. And this is an area that's responsible for basically processing our internal sensations, or how we feel inside of our body. How aware are we of what's happening in our body? And a lot of times what can happen is we can get signals that are being misinterpreted by our brain as being hungry. It's kind of like we get this feeling that we're hungry when we're really not. Sometimes we get feelings or this need, this feeling that we want to eat food when we're actually needing water because we're dehydrated. So there can be misinterpretation by the brain through the insular cortex of what these signals really mean. A lot of times these signals are just communicating something different, but the brain misinterprets it as needing to eat food. Then there's an area called the prefrontal cortex that lives in the frontal lobe of the brain. And that's the area that is responsible for basically our decision-making process, our logical, rational type thinking, that when the survival brain is calm, we're better able to regulate that, and it helps us make better decisions when it comes to food. When the prefrontal cortex is active and it's functioning normally, we're less likely to be experiencing cravings, at least not cravings that we can't control. We're less likely to give into cravings. We are more likely to make better food decisions, and we're more likely to engage in behaviors that support our health and fitness goals. When the prefrontal cortex is not functioning normally, a lot of times it could be inhibited or it's just underactive. That could just be happening because we don't have enough fuel and resources that's being directed to that part of the brain. Other times it could be inhibited by the survival brain. So the more active the survival brain becomes, the more inhibited our decision making becomes. And when that happens, it's like we lose our defense against cravings, and we're more likely to engage in binging episodes. So One thing we want to make sure that we do, the key concept to this whole thing is to calm that survival brain or regulate the survival brain. And when we can do that, we get more energy and resources that could be diverted to help the processing of the other areas like the hypothalamus and the insular cortex and also the prefrontal cortex. When these areas are functioning like they're supposed to and they're balanced and they're regulated, that's when we are in the best place to make the best decisions regarding food. We're less likely to binge, and we're more likely to achieve our health and fitness goals as a result. So the way that I've been controlling food cravings and binging is by using a few crazy simple techniques. And so step one, the first thing that I'm doing is making sure that I'm controlling that midbrain area. So this is the first thing that I do every day. It starts first thing in the morning, because if I don't do that, my survival brain it's almost like it's wired, like it's conditioned to start being overactive. It will just get me to a point where by the middle of the day, sometimes by late morning, like I can already feel like I'm going out of control or I'm getting cravings, and I'll be more likely to binge. So calming that midbrain area, it's all about inhibition. So it just means that I'm trying to turn the dial down on the amount of stimulation that's coming in, especially through my eyes, because during our day, we process about 90% or so of the input that comes into our brain every single second is processed visually through our eyes. So we get so much input coming in there. And this is especially true if you are sitting at a desk at a screen all day, or if you're on your phone for a long time throughout the day. The more that we have eyes on screens, the more visual fatigue we can get. And in my mornings, that's what I'm doing a lot of. I have homework, I'm studying a lot, I'm doing things online. So I will do things like wear colored glasses to help to kind of decrease that stimulation going in through the eyes. We can also use things like pinhole glasses. We can do things like put in earplugs. We can do things like wear a hat. So again, dimly lit room. So I will have like lights out first thing in the morning. The only light I have really is my computer screen. So I'm just decreasing the amount of stimulus that comes in. To regulate the hypothalamus, this is more things related to making sure that I get enough sleep. So if I can get away with it maybe for a night or two, where if I don't get enough sleep, I can be okay. But if it goes on longer than that, especially over the course of a week, I am more likely to be dealing with a lot of fatigue the next day. So I wake up, I don't feel like I'm rested because I'm not. When I'm tired, I'm gonna get hungry. So if we're not getting good sleep, we are more likely to be dealing with cravings. And it's gonna be cravings for the wrong types of foods, and typically the junk foods that we're not supposed to be eating and that oppose our health and fitness goals. And we are more likely to overeat those types of foods and or engage in binging type behaviors. For regulating the whole insula, so this is all the kind of the awareness of what's happening within my body, and to help try to increase the activation of the insular cortex so that I can properly and correctly interpret the signals that are coming into my body, so I don't misinterpret them as me being hungry and that drives me to overeat. So this is things where I might focus on things like breathing type drills. I might do things like isometric exercises or something I call muscle mapping to increase the physical awareness, the muscles that are working and the awareness of how my muscles are working. I might do things like vagus nerve stimulation. I might do things like some kind of sensory input or integrating different type of sensory type drills. So I'm integrating different systems of the body in different kind of areas of the brain. So all of that just to kind of help regulate the my awareness of what's happening inside my body. The more aware I am of that, the better the insular cortex functions, the less likely I am to overeat. Once I go through all of those, then I'm working on activation of the prefrontal cortex. So again, this is the area that is involved in decision making. This is the area of like our logical, rational thinking. And this is the area that helps us make better decisions when it comes to food. Makes it less likely to give into cravings and engage in binges. So to do this, I will use, sometimes it's vision drills. I might do things like vestibular type drills. So that way, if and when the craving monster hits, I'm at least better equipped with the best kind of defense that I can have against it. I'm less likely to give in when I've got a highly active and a fully functioning prefrontal cortex. And then the last thing is the whole implementation. So once these areas of the brain, I'm doing some drills, I'm regulating the areas of the brain that I need to, then I start looking at my food plan. Because if I just were to put a nutrition plan in place, or if I just think, okay, today I'm having this amount of calories, or I need this much protein, I might have a perfect plan in place, but I'm a lot less likely to stick with it because the areas of my brain might not be functioning the way they need to, and there's no calorie intake, there's no diet or nutrition plan that's going to keep that from happening. So by doing the brain activation and inhibition drills first, now I'm in a place where I can focus on my plan. And then when the plan is put in place, so on a plan, especially like today, it's a Saturday, tonight I'm gonna eat out and I'm gonna have what I want. I always have like family dinner night together with my family. We have dessert, and that is worked into my plan. That is not a reaction that's out of control for me. It is planned. However, even with a plan, I need a plan in place, so to speak. So I will put that plan where I make sure that I know what I'm gonna have for dinner, and I know where I'm gonna have it, whether I'm cooking at home, whether we're going out, like I have the plan in place. I also know what I'm gonna have for dessert. So I pick these things out, I plan them, I know where they're at, I know where we're gonna be if we're out and about. So the thing that having a plan does is, from a brain standpoint, it increases the brain's perception of certainty. I have a plan in place, my brain feels certain because it knows where I'm gonna go and what I'm gonna have. There's no guesswork. There's no decision making that has to be done in the moment that can be highly stressful, and that can trigger the survival brain and increase the whole threat perception and cause me to have cravings and binge and do that whole thing. So instead of that, the brain starts to perceive certainty, and where there's certainty, the brain perceives safety. So the threat signals come down, that survival brain is calmed down, and so I'm more likely to be able to stick with the plan that I have in place as a result. So more certainty equals more safety equals better control over food and cravings and less likely to binge. So now, instead of having those Saturday nights where I'm binging out on 5,500 calories, 6,000 calories, and this is all in one evening, and instead of doing that, I'm down to 4,000 calories in a night or less. Like my worst nights, 4,000 calories. And again, these are planned because I have purposely made my weekends higher in calories, and then my weekdays are a little bit lower. That gives me what I call like structured flexibility, where even though my weekends, I have this freedom, to enjoy what I want, there's still a structure in place with it. So it's not like I have all this freedom and then I'm more likely to go off the rails, because where there is too much freedom, there's no structure in place. The brain can perceive that as threat. So I have a structure in place, and within that structure, I have this flexibility. So I like this idea of what I call structured flexibility that works really well for me. I've lost 36 pounds in the last year and a half, and I've kept it off. So for me, even though it's not perfect, it's progress, and progress for me is sustainable. And I think that's the key, is that we don't need to have perfection. We may not have the most ideal or the perfect plan in place to achieve our goals. However, if what you're doing is sustainable, if what you're doing allows you to make progress, then that's all you need. Progress and sustainability go hand in hand. So if you are dealing with food cravings or these binges that you just can't seem to control and they're keeping you from reaching your fitness goals, or if you are a fitness or a nutrition coach who has clients who are struggling with the same issues and you're not able to get through to them and get them to stick with their plan, no matter how much motivation that you try to instill in them, or no matter how much of a perfect plan you put in place for them, they just continue to sabotage. They keep starting over. It seems like every Monday they go off on the weekends and they blow their diet. They're not working out. And it's not because you're failing them as a coach. It's not because of a lack of willpower. It's not because there's not enough motivation there. It's because of the brain and the nervous system. They're doing what they're designed to do, which is to protect you or them from perceived threats to their survival or your survival. So while the tendency is to try to control our behaviors, try to make better food choices, to put a better diet plan in place, or to change the workout program. These are things that might be able to help at some level. However, they're not enough in and of themselves to get you or your clients to stick with the plan long term. And that's what we need. I think that's where it all begins. The process of creating change, it begins with rewiring what's happening in the brain and the nervous system. We have to be able to use techniques that will calm the threat level down, because only when we calm that threat level down do we get access to our logical thinking, and that enables us to make better decisions when it comes to food, less likely to engage in those behaviors that sabotage our success. So if you or your clients are struggling with that, and if you got value from this video, do me a favor and let me know down below in the comments, what area are you struggling with the most? Like, what are the triggers that drive hunger or binges for you or your clients? And comment with that. And if I get maybe the first 3 comments, I will put together some drills that can help you or your clients with that. And in the meantime, if you like this video and you'd like to see more videos that help bridge the applied neurology with fitness to help you or your clients to be able to stick with their plans, stay more consistent, make it less likely to sabotage their goals so that they or you can be happier and get the results that you want, then click the subscribe button down below. And in the meantime, be sure to check out this video.